Welcome to Fusion 5 Radio with your host, Fusion 5 CEO, Rainee Busby.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, so today what I want to talk to you about is something we refer to as 5 leadership abilities. And these are 5 key leadership strengths, skills, experiences that you can use to be able to overcome challenges in your business or challenges in leading an organization or a committee or what have you. And so typically what we see is it's kind of also considered growing pains, where you'll have a tendency to what we call hit the ceiling, where you're able to grow the company or expand so far, and then you can't get over that hurdle. It's like you seem to be stuck. And by using these leadership abilities, you can push it over to that next level. So let's talk about them real quick. I don't want to spend too much time, but I will be going into them a little bit further in detail just so you can get clarity. So whether you have someone in your life that can benefit from this information, or maybe you yourself are responsible for leading people, or you're leading an organization, board of directors, PTO, all kinds of different avenues you can leverage these skills. So the first one is your ability to simplify. And, we have a tendency as humans to make things very complex, and that's not really necessary. So what I ask people to do is to really think about how can we make a system or a process simple. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be chaotic. Think a little bit, there's this whole line of books out there, the Keep It Simple KISS books. I know, Keep It Simple, Stupid. I don't know what it stands.
Keep It Simple, Stupid.
Yeah, okay. So there's a whole line of those books out there, and I want you to think about that. It doesn't have to, let's keep it as simple as we possibly can. And also, make sure that the message is simple. So when we're sending out communication, or we're having a speech or a dialogue or a conversation with someone, keep it simple. We don't have to use big words. We don't have to impress, because that's typically when people get a little sideways, because then they're starting to feel like they're being talked over, they're being discounted, right? And we don't want people to come across from that perspective at all. The next one has to do with your ability to delegate and elevate. This is probably, I think personally, one of the most important ones. And it has to do with you as a leader being able to delegate your roles and responsibilities, at least a fraction of them, in order for you to grow yourself, or grow your department, or grow the business. So in order to delegate, you need to be able to give that responsibility to someone and have trust and hold them accountable for that deliverable. So if you find yourself going back in and having to get involved every time, you have a problem. And a problem could be that maybe you have the wrong person in the job that you're trying to delegate to. Maybe it's not one of their strengths. So in order to grow, you've got to delegate and elevate, whether it's yourself or what have you, right? And so here's an easy way to think about it as well, is you figure 100% of our time is taken up every day doing a job. Well, if we get to the point where it's taking us 120% of our time, then we need to delegate that 20% of that time to someone else to be able to take care of it. And this is where I get back to the point, is we need to learn to work on the business, not in the business. We need to be able to elevate ourselves so that we can have work-life balance, right? Which is the main, what we're so passionate about, is helping people to get the most out of their life while being able to give back. A few other things is that we need to make sure we have, as I mentioned, the right people in the right seats, make sure that they have the capacity to do these jobs. And if you don't have that in place, you're going to have a really tough time delegating and elevating. You have to get the right people first. So the third piece, the third key leadership ability, is your ability to predict, right? So we need to predict short-term as well as long-term. So when we think about short-term, we're talking about our ability to solve daily and weekly issues. Issues are always going to be coming up, and our ability to get our arms wrapped around them, have clarity in what they are they really issues, understanding as a team, and then quickly solving those issues and solving them permanently, not putting a little Band-Aid on them, right? So for our long-term predicting, we want to be thinking about planning at least 90 days out or even longer. So as you're pulling together your leadership team, working together as one unit, You're planning for the future of your organization or the future of your church. So a lot of things that Mark was talking about stems because we didn't bring that team together and make those decisions holistically. And it's very easy for a pastor or the person who owns a company or leads to influence through the way that they facilitate. And so I have ability when I facilitate to pull things out of people because all the knowledge is in the room. And once we get clarity in how we communicate and everybody understands and we know kind of where we're heading collectively, it's very easy to get people aligned to the agenda, to be able to accept change easier. And I think that's probably one of the most important things. The fourth key leadership ability is your ability to systemize, right? So when we talk about systemize, we're talking about kind of processes. How do we do business? How do we serve our customers? How do we handle payroll? We want everybody doing it the same way. So we need to document at least 20% of our core processes, which will take care of about 80% of our challenges, right? So that's really about 80% of the results if we find those top key processes that we need to look at. Also, many times people do things because they've been doing it that way for 25 years. Well, that's great, but sometimes we need to take a step back and say, is that step really still necessary? Is anybody reading this report that you've been creating all this time? Many times we find that people have been spending 5 hours a week creating a report that nobody's even looking at. So we need to think about redundancy or tasks that just aren't really of any value anymore. The final leadership ability is your ability to structure. And this is really saying, take a step back, look at the big picture. Where do we want to go as an organization? And you work with your leadership team to paint that picture so you can start to see the future. Because if we keep doing the same thing we've been doing all along, we're going to end up out of business. Or as we talked about, your church is no longer going to be around because other people are ready to grow and move on. Society is moving on. So we need to be able to support that and understand the direction and get everybody kind of behind us. And no matter, how that structure needs to be, who needs to be in what role. What are the roles and responsibilities that they have to their area, like their department or their area of focus? And that's what are their roles and responsibilities to the leadership team, to the organization, to the church, right? Because we can't afford for somebody just to be focusing on one area. They need to focus for the betterment of everybody in the organization. And that's what we refer to as being really a strong leader. So those are some of the key leadership characteristics or abilities. If you can master those or begin to work on those, then we have a great opportunity to move forward into being a very successful leader in your organization. So let's go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back on Fusion 5 Radio.
Hello, friends. If you're enjoying our program, Fusion 5 Radio with Rainee Busby, let us know by going to fusion5radio.com and emailing us. Rainee wants to encourage you to write to her with any questions or comments that you may have. That web address again is fusion5radio.com. Fusion5radio.com. Rainee wants to help you be more productive in business and ministry by sharing with you each week how to get your life back through simple, practical steps. Fusion5radio.com. Write to us.